Peri, do that again.
It's getting a coat. Your block is the word. That's what everyone says. Everyone says the word.
I wish I could go back in time. I would go back to about 2 years ago when life was beginning to return to normal. When I think of my father, I think of laughter. I think of his devotion to his family and of someone who enjoyed his life. But I also know that my father was different things to many people.
He was very independent, a fighter. He wouldn't stand for any guff from anybody, and he didn't care. I caught him once being beat up by 5 kids, and he was fighting all of them.
A lot of my memories are more recent memories from the last few years because I got to know Daddy on a different level, and our relationship kind of changed in a more mature way. It's more of an adult-to-adult relationship. So we had a special bond between us.
There's lots of memories. We could probably go on and on and on and on and on. I remember when he proposed to me. I remember one time there was a terrible snowstorm, and Daddy walked over from his house to my house because he couldn't drive the car and there were no trains, so he walked on Ocean Parkway in the snowstorm to come to see me, to hang out, because we both had no school that day.
My mother and father got married right out of college. After 3 years, they had my brother Seth. Then 2 years later, I was born. We were always a close family. But then, in the spring '97, that closeness was tested.
Daddy had gone for a checkup, a regular physical, and the doctor said that he was anemic, and he suggested that he go to see a hematologist. And I said, what could be wrong? What could possibly be wrong?
I was only 13 years old, and I didn't really know much about anything at that point in my life. But they sat us down, and they told us that our dad was sick.
The first thing that I said was, we'll beat it. You know, I was very upbeat. I thought maybe he needed that as well, but I felt it.
My father was diagnosed with myelodysplastic syndrome, a rare form of leukemia that usually affects older men. For the next 4 years, he would undergo a series of painful treatments, including chemotherapy, bone marrow transplants, and blood transfusions. I was only 11, and I was scared.
My whole life changed. Our whole life changed. Daddy changed. He wasn't the same person that he had always been.
Well, the downs were obviously hard times for the family. When Dad would be sick, or he wouldn't be feeling well, or we would hear that he wasn't doing as well as we'd hoped. Those times, obviously, there was a lot of drama in the house, and emotions were flying.
Our lives as we knew it were no longer. Our family life as we knew it was no longer.
At times, we would feel like we'd fall apart. But other times, just us being a loving family and compassionate for each other helped us get through a lot of those times.
You ever notice in the movies when someone is very sick, everyone is brave and heroic, the family, the patient, and in one way or another it always seems to work out. But that's not how it happens. That's not real life.
February and March 2001 were actually very good months. His blood counts were going up and he was feeling much better. We were much more optimistic. Just the whole mood of the house changed. Things were much more upbeat. And we just had a positive outlook on the future.
It's a very hard day to talk about. It was the worst day of my entire life.
That Saturday, I actually got up early in the morning, spent a little time with him before I left, but not much because he was just sleeping and he really didn't feel too well.
I decided to drive him to the hospital, and he was having trouble breathing in the car.
And I didn't really think much of it because he'd been in the hospital many times before that. So I just thought it was routine.
Truth is, my father was dying. He had a simple chest cold that developed into a septic infection. The doctors performed an emergency tracheotomy. It was supposed to be routine.
I was sitting in the waiting room by myself. The doctor came out a few minutes later and said everything went fine and, that Daddy was doing okay. And he takes me up and he said, just wait out here a second. And he was in there for quite a while.
When I knew I had to go to the hospital was probably one of the scariest moments in my life. Obviously, I thought the worst.
Daddy was in a coma. He never came out of the coma.
Everyone wanted me to go see him, but I think at that point, when I first got there, I was too scared to go see him in the state that he was in. So I waited a little while before I went in to see him.
We just watched the monitors. We watched until Daddy's heart stopped, and he was gone. I think that Daddy was a special person. He touched the lives of so many people. I think about the people that were around Daddy the night he died. These were the people that were, closest to him in his life.
I couldn't have prayed harder, I couldn't have loved him more, and I couldn't have done any more than I did. I really, there were times when I sort of fancied that I could come up with a miracle cure, but of course this was not to be,
I feel like the situation caused me to grow up much faster than maybe I should have, but it really required me to step it up and take more responsibility and really be there for my dad.
This sucks. It shouldn't have happened. Daddy, at 39 years old, should not have been diagnosed with a terminal disease. He shouldn't have had to suffer for 4 years and then die.
We have to be thankful that we had the 43 years, and I am. I constantly think of him, I remember him, and not with sadness, It's just memories now. That's what we're left with, memories.
My father died on April 1st, 2001. He was 43 years old. I wish he were still here. I wish he didn't die so young that he'd miss all the important milestones that are still to come within our family. I wish I could tell him again how much I love him, although somehow I know he knows.